Hello and good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. It's a pleasure to have you all here. First, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Abe Karar. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Fintech Galaxy. We are, the technology partners with the CBB who delivered FinHub 973, and I'm very honored and privileged to be here today with an esteemed panel, panelists from across the Bahrain ecosystem. Allow me to welcome you all to this session. As you all may know, this is one of the sessions we hold whenever we have an innovation challenge. It's called the Ask Me Anything session, and it's really about that. It's an opportunity for you as participants to ask any questions that you may have pertaining to the innovation challenge. And the innovation challenge that we are here to discuss today is the Bahrain's Supernova Fintech Challenge. Now, during the session, what we're hoping for you to learn is really more about the themes for the separate innovation challenges falling under the overarching umbrella for the CBB's National Innovation Challenge, Supernova. And you may have already read the briefs, and in the briefs, we identified the customer pain points and what we're solving for, the problem statements, etc. But if you have other questions to better understand those pain points, to better understand the rules of the game, to better understand the criteria for the acceptable solutions and so forth, now is the chance to ask these questions. So I'd like to first start off by introducing our esteemed panelists. I'll start off by asking each and every of the panelists to quickly introduce their organization and the role they hold, and then we will jump right into the questions and take it forward. So starting off with Yasmin Al-Sharaf. Go ahead, Yasmin.
Thank you very much, Abe, and very good afternoon to everyone joining us today. So I'm Yasmin Al-Sharaf, heading the Fintech and Innovation Unit at the Central Bank of Bahrain. Very pleased to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yasmin. Moving on to Mu'taz Zakaria.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting us today. I'm from Bank ABC. I'm the product owner for the digital client onboarding as part of the wholesale banking digital transformation program.
Thank you so much, Mu'taz. Next, I'd like to have Ahmed Al-Mahri introduce himself.
Thank you. This is Ahmed Al-Mahri from Benefit Company. I'm as a senior manager, heading the Switch Services and Benefit Pay and the Business Development Department within Benefit. And welcome all to the session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Next, Mr. Mohammed Al-Qassab.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Mohammed Al-Qassab. I'm the head of digital experience and Ella Bank, a new fintech bank that recently launched in Bahrain.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mohammed. And last, but of course not least, Vineet Munot.
Hello, hi, good morning, everyone. This is Vineet Munot here. I'm heading transaction banking in the National Bank of Bahrain. So this comprises of 3 verticals: cash management, trade finance, and merchant acquiring. Pleasure to have this session, to be part of this session today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And for everybody's benefits, today we have a very, dynamic and mixed, audience. Many of them fall in the fintech space, some are in the regtech space, and some of them are technology solution providers. So again, welcome to all of you and very happy to have you. So starting off, before I kick in and I jump into the questions, I just like to share with everybody, a bit of a reflection about Bahrain. In fact, I share a very funny story. This morning, we actually had a meeting with some of the strategic partners of FinHub 973. And, at the end of the call, I made a mistake and I called one of the audience, Abdullah Al-Jarrah, but his name was Abdullah Haji. And I made the mistake because I was thinking of Hassan Al-Jarrah, the CEO of BISB, and he said something on one of the calls when we launched FinHub 973, on which this, Supernova is hosted. And he said, we have a rock star governor. And it got me laughing because this is what was going through my head in this morning when I was thinking about today's session. And it's very true. And I don't think this is just a reflector on, His Excellency Mohammed Al-Maraj. It's actually a reflection on Bahrain as a country, and I had the privilege of living there as well. And I can tell you, for those who may be coming from, global fintechs or from outside of Bahrain, Bahrain has really forged ahead and became really the leader and pioneer when it comes to innovation, when it comes to fintech collaboration, when it comes to regulation. And when I was living in Bahrain back in 2019, it was when the CBB had just come out with open banking, and here we are. A bit over a year later, CBB launched the Bahrain Open Banking Framework. FinHub 973 Digital Lab is launched. We're doing, a national innovation challenge, and the CBB and Bahrain overall has really led the charge when it comes to regulation around not just now open banking, but now pushing into open finance and open insurance or eKYC or crypto. So it's just a great reflection, these type of events and these type of innovation challenges on how such a country can also have a great influence in the adjacent markets. So we're now doing, we're having conversations with the CBB and the CBE in Egypt. There are discussions around how do we help facilitation cross-border? How do we allow the fintechs to, passport their license? And it's amazing. It's humbling, and it makes me feel myself and Fintech Galaxy as a whole very privileged to be a part of this and to be supporting this. And I'm hoping that everybody in the audience who is participating in this can also feel the same way, and hopefully it's going to add value to Bahrain, and hopefully to also, the ecosystems that you may have come from outside of Bahrain. So I'd like to now just really jump right into the questions. And I'd like to start, directing a question to Yasmin at the Central Bank of Bahrain. So Yasmin, as you're aware, the pandemic has accelerated disruption. We've seen it, across all sectors, from tourism to travel. And we've seen it with, ways of working. We've seen it with financial institutions. And we've realized that digitization is no longer something that banks or financial institutions are thinking about as a roadmap item. It's an imperative. It's something that you have to do in order to survive. And those who were able to pivot very quickly during the pandemic were those who were able to come out a bit stronger, although, now we're struggling the second wave, but that's a different story. But what I'd like to understand from you, is really what are some of the steps that you've taken as a central bank over the past year to address some of these challenges that have risen? And in your view, what are the opportunities that you see for Bahrain's fintech ecosystem, and how the new digital lab that was launched late last year can also facilitate that?
Thank you, Abe. If you allow me, before I start, I would just like to introduce my colleague Abdulaziz Al-Jar. He's also joining us today on the panel. Abdulaziz is representing the IT Directorate at the Central Bank of Bahrain as well.
Thank you, Yasmin, and I apologize, Abdulaziz. That was my bad. Thank you, Yasmin.
No worries. Yeah, just going back to your question, Abe. I'd like to start by giving just a little bit of context on Bahrain's financial services sector in general. For most of the audience today, I'm sure most of them know that Bahrain boasts one of the oldest and most established financial services sectors within the MENA region. The financial services sector is one of the largest contributors to the economy, to the growth of the economy, and it's the second contributor to real GDP following the oil and gas sector, valuing it around 17% as of last year. We're also home to around 400 financial institutions from all around the world who call Bahrain home. As a single regulator to the financial services sector, the Central Bank of Bahrain has really leveraged upon the expertise within financial service that we've gained over the past decades to build a regulatory landscape and a regulatory environment that is conducive to building and supporting a thriving, future-proofing, progressive financial services sector. To do so, we've embarked on a number of different initiatives to promote fintech and innovation within the financial services sector, because we realize, in order for us to maintain that level of excellence, we have no choice but to be able to encourage more innovation by the use of financial technology as well. So we've embarked on a number of fintech initiatives over the past few years, starting with establishing a dedicated fintech and innovation unit back in 2017. And since then, we've launched a number and a plethora of different initiatives, from introducing new regulations to introducing the first onshore regulatory sandbox within the region. And to be honest, we have been very successful so far in creating one of the region's most dynamic, thriving, and collaborative fintech ecosystems, I would say. And we continue to develop this ecosystem as and when required. Now, you mentioned the pandemic, and that's a very important point, Ape. What the pandemic did is that it only accelerated the need to transform digitally, and it really emphasized on the importance of fintech, on the importance of technology going forward. We at the central bank have been working day in and day out over the last year, just to keep ahead of the curve and to be able to leverage upon the opportunities that this pandemic has brought forward by utilizing technology. And by doing so, one of our greatest initiatives last year was a great enhancement to our fintech ecosystem, and that is the introduction of FinHub 973, which is the region's first of its kind open digital virtual platform, which is being led and launched by the Central Bank of Bahrain in partnership with Fintech Galaxy as our technical partners, and in partnership with other financial institutions within Bahrain. Just to, again, give a little bit of context on FinHub 973 and what the whole story behind FinHub 973 is. So basically, FinHub 973 operates using Fintech Galaxy's Phoenix 22 infrastructure, which is hosted onto the cloud. And it also offers financial institutions and international fintechs access to more than 300 open APIs, providing them with more than 300 use cases. It provides them as well with a host of synthetic data. It provides an AI-driven fintech marketplace listing fintechs from all around the world. And it's really a virtual environment that allows and supports more collaboration between financial institutions within the kingdom and with fintechs from around the world, allowing them to come together to build prototypes, to build MVPs, and to solve for real life challenges, and to better enhance serving their customers at the end of the day.
That's fantastic, Yasmin, and thank you for sharing this. Could you perhaps take a few moments and talk to the audience about how this Supernova National Innovation Program is designed and how it's structured, and the various themes that we're looking to target to support the Bahraini ecosystem?
So basically, the Bahrain Supernova is the first of its kind national fintech challenge. So it's a number of different challenges, which is driven by the central bank, along with a number of our strategic partner financial institutions who are members of FinHub 973. The main idea behind Bahrain Supernova is each of our financial partners, our strategic partners, has today listed a challenge, a real life challenge, to solve a real pain point that they are witnessing within their own organizations, and which will eventually help them to better serve their customers in a more streamlined, more advanced, and more progressive fashion as well. The Central Bank of Bahrain is also leading one of the challenges, which is to support financial institutions as well, in a real pain point that we have witnessed over the past few years, I would say. So, the challenges vary from supporting or finding solutions to support banks when it comes to complying with the Central Bank of Bahrain's blocking and unblocking orders. It's to find AI-driven solutions to better serve loan decisions or credit ratings, and to better serve customers at the end of the day as well.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Yasmin, for that. I'd like to, pivot slightly to Benefit. So, Ahmed, as Benefit and as being, one of the most foundational payment service providers in Bahrain, you recognize that digital payments and the digital payment space has evolved dramatically over the past few years. And whether it's proximity payments, like the tap and pay, or even going to the Internet of Things, where you could technically make a payment by just a car passing another car in some of the what's being explored in other geographies of the world, and realizing that this will have such a major impact on the sector. So my question to you, Ahmed, is what are some of benefits existing payment channels, so everybody in the audience can get an understanding of that, and also what are you seeing in terms of customer demand for smart technology, or are you trying to really just get ahead of the curve? So if you can speak a little bit about the solution that you're looking for and what are some of the pain points that you're trying to solve for as well.
Sure. Thank you, Abi, for the introduction, and thank you, Yasmin, for the insightful speech about CBB support, which we are in depth to, if I may say. Without CBB support, all this innovation and push wouldn't have been realized, honestly, since the past 3 or 4 years. If you excuse me, but I hate the word impact because it sounds negative, to be honest. And when it comes to adaptation and implementation of IoT and implementation of enhancement of payments, it's rather a positive thing when you see the customer journey themselves. So IoT in terms of adaptation varies a lot. We have seen the extreme implementation, which has, you have clearly said, a car pass by and they make a payment. But comes also with the challenge when it comes to the security, reliability, connectivity. Everything has to be connected, which we know it's for now at this stage it's kind of a major challenge. But we are going toward that as we proceed, alhamdulillah, with introduction of services and the collaboration we have among all stakeholders within financial and non-financial service. Benefit services overall, I'm not talking about the whole portfolio, because benefit is the most infrastructural payment service provider and information as well. So we support all the fintech players, all the participants in the market in achieving their goals by providing infrastructural service that provides connectivity, that provides speed, that provides efficiency, starting from the switch to the EFTS to the check truncation system and the credit reference bureau. And one of the major implementation, I would say, in advancing the payments and technology within the country is Benefit Pay, which everyone is aware of. And it's more of acting as a hub rather than an app facilitating a service, connecting all the players in the market to one and facilitating the services to the mass, I would say, audience of Bahrain market. And alhamdulillah, last year we have achieved a volume of almost 2 billion BD, and we have seen only for the first quarter of this year we have achieved 1 billion. So we are looking, inshallah, to exceed the 4 billion toward the end of the year in terms of volume of transaction. And this addresses that there was a very, I would say, essential need among the people to have something easy to address their need in exchanging of money and payment and transfer and bill payment and all of that. So we are evolving and addressing the customer needs as we progress. We don't usually maybe focus on the technology itself, but rather on addressing a need that today is more of a pain to the people. If you have seen last year, celebrating, if I may say, this, the launch of the fuel payment. We launched it almost 2 days ago last year on the 1st of May. So that addresses a major pain, especially during the pandemic. People try to avoid use cash, and fuel was the major cash point back then. So alhamdulillah, we have made a great success, and it is a part of implementation of IoT, if you look at it, because you're in the car, there is no interaction with any machine or anybody. You just complete your payment and you drive off. So this is a great, and Tap and Go, as you said, is another milestone that we have achieved in collaboration with Central Bank and the banks in Bahrain to achieve a frictionless payment. So in a nutshell, achieving an IoT is toward mostly improving the customer experience by having as frictionless as possible payment experience to the users. Some are challenging if you think of the adaptation of let's say, an interactive supermarket where you just drop your goods and drive off. But this has a challenge in adapting it as a wide implementation or cross-country implementation. We know the IT challenges and the connectivity and the development and all the costs associated with such. So in terms of what we are looking for, we actually aim to address the market demand. So if there is any player in the market that has a need to be addressed or a requirement or a missing link, if I may say, that we can achieve or help them in achieving that, that is the role of Benefit at the first place. Second, we see our customers as well in terms of what they are demanding or what are the areas that they need more, I would say, connectivity toward, if the word is right. So we are, inshallah, aiming toward introducing more and more services on top of Benefit Pay platform, rather not competing, but complementing the market player. So today we are advancing, for example, inshallah, within the next month, we are launching the remittance service on top of Benefit Pay. But it's not Benefit Pay being the provider. I'm moving all the providers of remittance toward this platform so they can reach out to the whole customer base of Benefit Pay and offer their services. So I'm providing them reach. I'm extending their digital reach, to be more precise, toward the customer base of Benefit Pay, which is above 700,000 today. So they will have, we can support digital onboarding for them if they support it and approved by central bank. They can provide all the online services they would like to do in terms of remittance and so on. And as we go, inshallah, this is our main aim in the market, is to facilitate and enable and to support the digital transformation strategy of Central Bank of Bahrain as well. I hope I've addressed all the questions within your introduction.
Yeah, you know what? You addressed beyond my questions.
Okay, great.
That's good. You know, it's interesting. Two things that come to mind, actually. One is, you know, we've heard, you know, we've seen all the smart watches, smart, you know, phones, smart cities. And you know what, something that I recently, you know, came across that touches Internet of Things, just a reflection, is also smart roads. The actual road, the asphalt has these, you know, these detection mechanisms. And based on that, you can start doing things similar to kind of what you guys are doing with the whole, you know, pump and drive. But then again, monetizing on that. But thank you so much, Ahmed. That was very helpful. And I'm sure the audience will probably come back and ask some more clarifying questions. And we'll get to that once we go through our initial list here. So I'd like to actually move over to Mortez. With Bank ABC, we know the theme that Bank ABC selected for the Supernova Challenge is that of autonomous finance. And, you know, in the midst of digitizing ABC's corporate client onboarding system, we'd like to understand, you know, for the innovators in our audience, what are the challenges that you see with digital identity, digital identification, certification, verification, and you know, what are you looking to accomplish when it comes to, you know, having an end-to-end autonomous finance type of solution?
Thank you, Abi, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to come and demonstrate what we are trying to achieve in the digital onboarding for the corporates and financial institutions. So today, one of the challenges that we are facing is, as you said, identification and verification. So the first thing that it will cross your mind when we talk about the identification and verification, it will be for individuals when we talk about their IDs and passports. But when it comes to legal entities, it's a little bit more complex. So today we are talking about multiple documentation that we are obtaining from the legal entities, whether it's corporate or financial institutions. Some of them will be available in the public registries. However, the majority of these documents will be within the client premises or as a repository in his offices. So today, the challenge will be how we can verify that this document is genuine. And let me give you an example. When we talk about the article of association, it's like 30 to 40 pages. So we are expecting now to identify that document by obtaining this document, and we need to verify the content in that document. So that will be a little bit difficult when it comes from a bank to a bank, or to a user to another, or to RM to another. Today, you cannot put everyone on the same level of expertise. So we were looking for a platform or solution that will help us in the due diligence and how we can reduce the human intervention, especially that, as we said, these documents, they are not available in the public registries. So how we can ensure a better dealing with these companies, and to assure that we are not going with a shell or shelf companies in future.
Wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually fascinating. So I'm based in Dubai, and from working with some of our clients here, it turns out that this is actually a very common problem. It's not just in Bahrain. So when it comes to corporate, onboarding, and there are, some, who are talking about, oh, I want to do intelligent OCR. So I can look at an unstructured document. But to your point, that just extracts the data. But how do you then verify authenticity? So it's a very interesting case. So I'm hoping we'll see, some of the fintechs in this space, and hopefully we can solve this for Bank ABC. Thank you so much, Mu'taz.
Thank you.
Moving to ABC's sister bank, ILA. I don't know if I call it sister bank or the parent and the child, but ILA Bank has come into the market and really as they say in Arabic, with the dajja wa ranna, and really created some good momentum. It's fascinating to see that when you have a bank that lives on your mobile phone, with no branches, and it's fully digital, the opportunities. And I had the pleasure of speaking with Mohammed last week, and it was very fascinating, some of the things I heard and the ideas they have. So what I'd like, from Mohammed is really, talking to the audience about the theme that you've chosen, and what you said to me last week, purposefully keeping it vague, around improving the customer experience using AI. And what are some of the challenges around generating personalized insights or financial advice? And what are some of the requirements that may come to your mind, whether from a technical perspective, experiential perspective, operational, and that kind of thing? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Abe. Yeah, we did have a very interesting conversation last week, and we'll try to bring everybody else also to the board. Obviously, basically, the Bahrain's ecosystem allowed for a bank like ILA to be born. We have strong partnerships with the likes of Benefit and the CBV, and hopefully now we're looking at partners in the fintech sector to help us also move us to the next step. Now, ILA basically is what you'd expect, and what not us in the financial industry, but even the people basically are expecting as a solution in the 21st century, especially post-COVID chapter. A bank basically that is purely digital first or digital only, dare I say. We did basically, I think, launch in the right time, in the right space, but we believe basically that the next step or the next frontier will be beyond digital. will be on the eco of smart banking. So the same revolution, basically, that smartphones when they basically completely revolutionized not only the telco industry but the entire world. So we're looking at to move to that basically to that frontier, and we're looking at a partner that understands purely data. How data is obviously the gold or the oil of the 21st century, and be able to present and provide a completely hyper personalized experience basically for our own customers. The challenge that we're facing obviously today is that yes, we are digital, we are in that space, but we also want to provide our customers with intelligent and smart, let's say, solution to give to help them basically navigate through their daily lives. We have people basically telling us that they're not sure if they're on the right track for saving. They're not sure if they've overspent. They're not sure if they should buy that car or if they should buy that basically I don't know, gadget that they're looking for. Now, especially in the COVID situation, there's a lot of basically people have fears of stability of the future. Things are now moving in a better space, but we're looking at as I mentioned, as a partner that can help us build basically that ecosystem. So we've put basically quite an open, honestly, challenge. But mainly what we're looking for is somebody that understands data, that can help us basically jump ahead and not having to build a complicated solution within our own basically infrastructure, and also somebody that understands the regulatory ecosystem, and especially now within the bounds of things like PDPL. For people that don't know, that is basically our flavor of the data protection law. So those are important elements basically for the partners that we're looking to work with, that having that kind of understanding and that level of basically capability to bring those kind of experiences to our customers.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. And it's important also to note, just to level set with everybody, the expectations are high. Mohammed said to me last week, back, maybe last year, you would say something will take, 2-3 months, or it's a matter of months to get something out the door. He's like, we're now thinking more in weeks. So whoever brings something to the table has to really be able to deliver something that adds value, because, banks, especially like ILA and many other banks, are now realizing that I don't want to incur all this effort and infrastructure and whatnot. I want to do something that will add value and do it in an expeditious manner. So, so for all the audience, be ready for that. Thank you so much, Mohammed. I really appreciate it. A question back to the CBB, and whether I want to, direct this question to Abdulaziz. When Abdulaziz, again, I apologize. It's because your name and Yasmin was in the same line, so I went right straight to the second line. So again, apologies, brother. Yasmin and Abdulaziz, this question is actually about RegTech, and I guess this is why also we have Abdulaziz on the line, being a technology expert who actually supported the BUB, which is the platform that sits within the CBB, and it's used for this challenge. But I'll let actually Yasmin and Abdulaziz describe it, and maybe explain more about the challenge, the automation process that you're looking to accomplish associated with the account blocking and unblocking. And if you could tell us a bit more on why the current manual process is, been such a pain, and especially on the bank side, whether financially painful with penalties, or painful from, just a process and operational perspective.
Aziz, do you want to start by just maybe giving an overview of the BUB system, and then maybe I'll take it on to the what we're trying to solve for?
Sure, Yasmin. Thank you, dear, for the introduction. And just to give you a brief about the blocking and unblocking system, currently, as you have mentioned, it is launched in CBB as a portal that's used by the financial institutions to reply back to the Ministry of Justice orders. So the main idea of the blocking system, that Ministry of Justice will upload their order or their request through that portal, and all the financial institutions, they will have an access to reply back for that orders and BUB system. So the main point here, there is no integration between the BUB system and Central Bank of Bahrain along with the bank's core banking system to do that orders or to impact that order there. So I believe there is a manual steps need to be taken by the financial institutions to take all that orders from BUB system, go back to their core banking system, do the actions there, either to block or to unblock the accounts, and then they have to go back to BUB system and to update it with the all the let's say actions they already taken on their core system.
So
this is the painful, yeah.
So just to add to that, thank you very much, Abdulaziz, for the explanation. So the BUB system has been built in-house by the Central Bank of Bahrain, which is really to convey account blocking, unblocking, inheritance, and other inquiry-related actions to do with accounts from the Ministry of Justice and other courts within Bahrain to banks. And then banks obviously will have to action those requests, whether they are to block, whether they are to unblock, whether it's to do with an inheritance case, whether it's just an inquiry that they have to get back to. And banks have typically a limited period of time to respond to those requests and to action those requests as well. So when it comes to the blocking, unblocking, and inheritance requests, banks and other financial institutions typically have to get back to those requests and action those requests within the same day. And as Abdulaziz mentioned, currently the process is very manual from the financial institutions end, in the sense that once financial institutions receive those orders from the BUB systems and get a notification that there is an order, for instance, for blocking or unblocking or a general query that they have to respond back to, banks will then typically go through a very manual process to respond back to the BUB system, and that can be very timely and time-consuming, and that may also result in having repercussions in the form of, being subjected to penalties from the Central Bank of Bahrain. Since the Central Bank of Bahrain is very strict in requiring financial institutions to be in strict compliance and actioning those orders within the same day that those orders are received. So the purpose of this challenge is really to help our financial institutions in processing and actioning those requests that are being received from the Central Bank of Bahrain's BUB systems, which are being trickled down from the Ministry of Justice, and to find a solution that will sit on the banks and on the other financial institutions' core banking systems, if you may, and to be able to action those requests automatically in real time to help them avoid, facing any delays in complying with actioning those requests, which will then, avoid them facing any penalties from the Central Bank of Bahrain as well.
That's great. Actually, I do have a question for Abdulaziz, because this actually came up from, some of the fintechs that had, I was just having offline discussions actually was, I said, hey, we're helping the CBB with this. And one of the questions was, how is the data stored in the BUB system? Is it in some sort of database like Oracle or SQL database? And the other fold of it was, how does the MOJ or the public prosecutors upload the data? Are they going through a portal, or are they uploading, let's say, CSV files or delimited files?
Thank you. Regarding the storage of the data of the blocking system, as you have mentioned, it's already stored in a database, an Oracle database. And how the Ministry of Justice, they are uploading their data, they have a specific page on BUB portal. They are logging there manually and uploading their files as of now.
And they upload batch files, or they like would put in?
Yeah. No, they have uploading one file which contain a multiple of cases there.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Okay, and thank you, Yasmin, also for explaining more of the challenges and what the banks are facing and what we're solving for. I'd like to quickly pivot over to to MBB, and I'd like to ask Vineet to help us understand about the pain points that are being solved for with their theme. So as you all know, when it comes to B2C, there are quite a few pain points, but there are quite a few solutions out there. But it turns out that also on the B2B space, there is a substantial scope for fintechs that could really introduce some solutions to mitigate some of these pain points. So, the theme around connectivity, around integration with enterprise technologies, could you address the audience and help them and just explain a bit more about what are the challenges that MBB in particular is facing, and what are the type of technologies that you're looking to connect and integrate with?
Thanks, Abhi, and would also like to add my thanks to CBB and Fintech Galaxy for organizing this wonderful innovation challenge. It is really, I'm confident it's going to trigger a lot of good insight and wonderful innovation thinking across the ecosystem. So let me start with a few broad things, like over the last few years we've seen few key things develop. One of them obviously is the focus towards digitization, and COVID has only accelerated that. What used to be something which the large corporates would focus on, we are seeing that even the small corporates, MSMEs, SMEs have embraced it during these difficult times. The second is the availability of cloud-based solutions, which is again something which has come to the market. So, for example, cloud-based ERP solutions are now available in the market, which have made it much easier for small corporates like SMEs to also avail that. And third is the migration from batch kind of processing to real-time processing. And we see that in fund transfers, and of course, it's a big compliment to CBB and Benefit. When they launched Fawdy Plus few years back, we were among the fastest globally. So, and continue to be leading that space, which some of the countries are now catching up on. So these three, if you are quite actually interlinked, and what we thought that even when the customers are migrating from paper to digital, and the fact that they are also embracing ERP-based, cloud-based ERP solutions, and even that got further accentuated when VAT was rolled out, because they could now they were kind of incentivized to have the ERP, which will solve for their invoicing and VAT and all of that. But there was still one pain point, and the pain point was that if they are, let's say, banking with few banks, they still have to get the file from their ERP. They have to segregate that file based on the various banks. They have to upload the file to various banks, make payment, and the reverse as well. Get feedback from the banks, like MT940 statements, etc. Then upload it back into ERP, and then to make sure that the reconciliation happens. That's one element. Second is obviously that is adding to multiple level of maker checker at various. And so one is that you have the procurement, which is entering the details, or the purchase department or the accounts department in the client side, and then again they are entering the same details and verifying it again on the bank portal side. This can be eliminated by having what is called a host-to-host solution, which so far has been more like privy to the large corporates, and because it was quite a cumbersome exercise. One, not too many banks offered it. Even if the banks offered it, it was a bit complicated. It required some integration at the client side. It required configuration at the bank side, and then it was quite a lengthy and an expensive process. Not every customer can afford it, and definitely not the SME side. But given that what the things that I mentioned, that have now the cloud-based ERP solutions coming into the picture and SMEs embracing it, it is important that we also give them access to a very simple, nimble, cheap, easy to implement host-to-host solution, which which can be hosted on the cloud, and it can be used like a product as a service, under a PaaS model, rather than being something which they have to spend a lot of time in implementation, or making it a very cumbersome and costly proposition. So this is the challenge that we have thrown out to the fintech, and of course with now the world moving towards API, with standardization in messaging protocols using ISO XML formats from a file perspective. All those things are only going to enable. Of course, there has to be an encryption and decryption, which is again can be standardized. There can be file converters, which will now allow for various type of files to be converted and reconverted both at the client and the bank side. But the idea is that if we can have something very simple, which can now be taken to actually the SMEs, I think that will really enable a host-to-host connection between the client ERP and the bank. And it would not only facilitate efficiencies, because there will be only a single maker checker, as I said, at the client side, but it will also enable real-time access to payments processing, to information, to statement upgrades, and all of that. So that's the whole challenge.
Thank you so much. Vinita, I have a follow-up question to you, and then I'm going to jump into some of the questions we got from the audience. Do you feel that this, especially that it's it's not the same as the legacy host-to-host, let's call it, the ERP? Do you think that open banking, especially in Bahrain, since that exists, could solve for some of these, enabling, like you said, access to data, access to payments more instantly, etc.?
It will. In fact, eventually what would happen is that this will morph into a bank agnostic solution, because what would happen is that this will just be a solution which either any bank on the one side or any client on the other side could take. It might be that NBB and a few fintechs might lead this space to put in something in the first place. But the way I see it is that it is eventually going to morph into a very bank agnostic solution, and that way open banking will definitely play a role, because then all you do is you just get access to the APIs at the bank. Exactly. and on the client, and then load it up.
Exactly. Wonderful. It's giving me some ideas for my own fintechs that I want to build.
Okay. As long as you share some commissions, that's fine.
Wonderful. All right. So I have some questions that came from the audience. I'll start off with one question that came from Ruwaida. And Ruwaida asked a question to, Ahmed within Benefit. And the question is, for third-party companies, how can we get the information from Benefit if we wanted to pull a credit score for a client?
Actually, we avail integration to any kind of participant within the country, yet subject to the regulation and rules of Central Bank of Bahrain. So any participant to the Credit Reference Bureau should follow the regulation and the code of conduct that is there to participate in such. As of now, if they are providing any credit facilities or providing any scoring or such, they will be entitled to participate. So that's not an issue. And we have an API to connect and filter this information as well. So
question as a follow-up.
Yeah.
As a follow-up to that, and maybe Yasmin can also chime in, what if it's a fintech that wants to pull the credit score and then use it in an algorithm to then come up with a recommended credit line or some sort of, let's call it scorecard for credit adjudication. So they're not necessarily providing credit facilities, they are providing a tool for then a bank to provide credit facilities. So I'm assuming those are not necessarily regulated activities, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, both Ahmed and Yasmin.
I mean, just if you allow me, Yasmin, just we have also a scorecard, by the way, API. So
Okay.
benefits and banks and third-party providers can utilize our scorecard and score services to extend it to provide beyond that. So the base is there. We provide a scorecard with a recognized algorithm and all of that, and then they can extend it and use it to extend their service furthermore. So they don't have to do the trouble of having the scorecard as well, because it's already there and there is an API published for them to utilize.
Okay. And Yasmin, in that case, do they need to get a license for that?
Yeah, so just from a regulator's perspective, it's important for us to safeguard the confidentiality of customers' credit information and not to share that information with unauthorized, unregulated third parties. That's a huge responsibility of ours as a regulator. So what we usually do is we allow authorized parties, authorized licensed entities within Bahrain to gain access to that data through the use of APIs, as Ahmed mentioned. And when it comes to fintechs that want to kind of build a prototype using that kind of data, what we usually do is we, first of all, we'd ask those fintechs to apply to our regulatory sandbox to operate within that regulatory sandbox. And then we usually enter into kind of an arrangement with the benefit company to provide them with dummy data to be used for the purposes of testing.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Questions that came earlier from Vineeth Pillai. I apologize if I mispronounced that. The questions were, as a developer, I will get repo access to enhance the API by providing additional endpoints. And the second question, will we get elevated role users to act on behalf of banks to do operations like freeze an account and release after necessary actions done by the bank? I'll try to take a stab at that, but then if anybody in the audience also wants to, provide any additional insights, especially more on the second question, since, you guys are the financial institutions. Within FinHub 973, there is, the digital lab, which comprises of, multiple modules as Yasmin described earlier, but one of them is the technical sandbox. And the technical sandbox, as a developer, you can go in and you can create username and access, and depending on what you're trying to do, we can give you the let's call it entitlement to create what we call dynamic entities and dynamic endpoints. So think of creating a node in a JSON file and then creating the attributes within that as an example. So yes, the answer in short is you would have the ability to do that and expose your own APIs, if you will. On the second question, and if I'm not mistaken, this could be potentially related to account blocking, unblocking, but correct me if I'm wrong, Vineeth, which is, will you have the ability to, act on behalf of the bank? And the way I see this from conversations with banks, for example, we had a session with BISB, Bahrain Islamic Bank, and when they were explaining the process, in an ideal state, the fintech solution should be able to make an API call to the core banking, read the information, does this customer exist in our core banking? If they exist, what's the action? Block, how much do I block? X amount. After the block, another call comes back, and then it updates, the BOB system. This is very high level, but what we understood from BISB is, if this is a proper open banking solution with all of the proper encryption, the data is encrypted, both at rest and in transit, maybe even using some concepts like, zero knowledge proof. So technically, as a provider, you have a solution, but you don't necessarily know who's the customer, what's their CPR ID, or you don't know what's the amount. But your solution will just pass this data, and then through encrypted API calls, it will carry out the actions and then report back to the VOB. I hope that answers your question. All right. If there are no other questions on those 2 points, I will move on. If there are questions, just type them into the chat. So I'll try to capture them. We have, I believe, another 15 minutes. I see a question here that came from Vaibhav. Thank you, everyone, for the panel and for the time today. Some questions about the artificial intelligence user experience challenge. So this actually will be question for Mohammed. And it says, is there a document explaining CBB regulation for robo-advisory? Is there POC timeframe based? Is it timeframe based or use case objective based? If a POC fees are demanded by matured Fintech. So I know this question is actually for both Yasmin and Mohammed from ILA. If POC fees are demanded by matured Fintechs with active customers in the Middle East using same solution who have ready solutions, can it be considered? Mohammed, you can probably chime on this one. And lastly, would a prototype be required? If so, any grant amount to develop a prototype? So how about we start with Yasmin? The initial one is about really the CBB regulation, about robo-advisory. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we do actually. Thank you for that question. The Central Bank of Bahrain has issued specific regulations around robo-advisory, and those can be found on the CBB's website under Rulebook Volume 4, which is our investment business firm rulebook. So yes, the answer to that question is yes, we do have regulations on robo-advisory.
Thank you. Mohammed, what are your thoughts about, if a company comes to you and they want to do a POC regarding the use of AI to enhance the experience of clients? Is it time-based or use case-based? If they're a company that have a pre-existing solution out there, but they want to come work with you, would you still consider them? And, I guess the last question is a grant or not. Maybe we can take that one offline, but I'll let you take those questions.
Yeah, it's mainly we're looking at somebody who's going to be able to deliver a use case or objective. So this would be at the end of a POC. Potentially, we'd like to actually see results. But we can discuss in POCs. We've done that with a number of partners in the past. We can discuss specific use cases that the partner has capabilities to deliver, and also it will help us basically achieve our objectives. And also we would like maybe as the challenge basically details, we're looking for somebody that, as I mentioned, helps us reduce also our development timeframe and go to market. So as I mentioned, not months, weeks. That's the kind of window that we're looking at. So something like SDKs could be obviously APIs, SDKs, an open basically architecture or interface that our systems can talk to easily, that can speed up basically the process quite significantly. So that's it in a nutshell. And a prototype is required, definitely. That's a must.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Some questions that also came through again from Vaibhav. So I guess these questions are focused on the CBB. The first question is, each bank can have a different core banking system. Makes sense. MySys, Finestra, T24, whatever. So will we have to develop a separate connector for each bank? Follow-up question was, which all languages shall be kept in mind for this automation solution? I'm gonna assume this, I don't know if this is a programming language or the language in which the instructions come from the CBB. So we'll tackle that one. And then the last two questions also from Vaibhav were, what is the daily volume of this process? And what is the TAT for each request? So I can answer the first one, again, just from talking to some of the banks. Yes, every bank will have a different core banking system. And the idea that if you are going to go through the approach of building it through APIs, then yes, logically, you would need to build an adapter. Ideally, your solution should have a bunch of adapters for the most common core banking systems. And then if you need to, tweak it accordingly, you would do that. Because again, it's a very set instructions or set, let's call them activities, checking the balance, acting out on it, reporting back, etc. In terms of the other questions, which is which are all the languages shall be kept in mind. I'm not sure, Vaibhav, if you mean programming languages, I guess that's your own choice as a, you know, a RegTech provider, what language you use. If it's about what language are the instructions coming in, I had a chance to see the BUB system, and probably Abdulaziz can comment on this as well. And in fact, there are both languages. It's in English and in Arabic. But I believe in the database itself, and what you get is probably the CPR ID, or you would get the commercial registration for an entity. Abdulaziz, is that accurate?
You are correct, dear Afi. But additional to that, Ministry of Justice, they are providing the customer name, the other comments, and it can be either in Arabic or in English, in both languages.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Abdulaziz, for clarifying that.
I'm sorry to interrupt there. So typically we would like to see a solution that would cater to both languages, English and Arabic as well.
Okay, wonderful. And then here's a question either for you, Yasmin, or Abdulaziz, in terms of what's the, I wouldn't call it TAT as Vaibhav, but let's just call it the SLA. How quickly do banks need to respond back? So I think that's relevant. And then also what's roughly the daily volume that gets pushed out of the BOB system?
So maybe I'll leave the floor to Abdulaziz. Maybe I can chime in later.
Yeah, thank you, Yasmin. Regarding the when the financial institution, they have to reply back to the cases, as mentioned by central bank, they have to take an immediate action for the received Ministry of Justice cases on the system, on BUB system. And regarding the average of cases, they are almost between 200 and 250 cases per day.
Okay. And maybe a follow-up, Abdulaziz, I'm assuming these, could you clarify, do these come in around the clock 24/7, or do they only come in within a certain time frame?
See, now it's only coming, let's say, between 7 and 7, between 7 morning and 7 at evening, but I believe there is a plan to make it 24/7. So the solution need to be ready for working in all the days, 24 hours per 7 days.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Exactly. So for those solution providers, just bear that in mind. The solution we're looking for is 24/7.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Yasmin. A question was also from Shan Fini, and the question is, can we use RPA to mimicking the BUB update? From the experience that, again, I've had having multiple meetings with the CBB and with banks, RPA unfortunately lacks the, some of the core requirements, such as complete encryption, because the RPA needs to actually read the text and then send it through, keys to the platform. And the BUB system, as it stands today, also has, the fact that you have to actually go through maker checker, and you have to go back and report back, even if you do not find the customer in the core banking, you have to go back and write this. And so I'm basing this based on some of the conversations I've had. There is one bank that has an in-house RPA solution, and they also have another bank that had a low-code platform, and they attempted to do it, and they were a bit challenged. But from my perspective, I guess the main challenge is really about encryption, and you don't want the system to have the ability to read that sensitive data, which is something that you could typically avoid when you're doing encrypted API calls. But again, if there are some RPA solutions out there that are RPA on steroids and will have that capability, then why not? Okay. I'm looking through the chat and I'm looking through the QA. Let me just see if there's anything else pending. There was some in the QA. Let's see. One from Hussam Youssef. When is Apple Pay expected to work in Bahrain? So Ahmed, would you know that?
Actually, this is a decision that is purely related to Apple, and they will only announce a week earlier, I guess. So we were hoping that toward the end of last year, and then they postponed, and now I don't know To be honest, there is no clear date announced, and they don't usually announce when they will look. But
Okay,
let's wait
fair
and
enough.
see.
We'll wait and see.
If you allow me just to tap into a question asked by earlier by Montez about the authenticity of corporate documentation and all of that. I believe we are working on a consortium that involves government bodies, Central Bank of Bahrain, and all of that on two major initiatives. One is the corporate eKYC as an extension of the current eKYC system, and a project that we call SME 360. So that should build the foundation to allow for digital onboarding of corporates and then extending it to whomever service provider they want to base their service and authentication by utilizing our infrastructural service to extend it further on. So just a small note I wanted to make.
Thank you. Very good note. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ahmed. A couple more quick questions here. One for ABC. So Martez, great segue back to you, which is, will the documents be machine readable PDFs or scanned documents?
So it might be both. So because we've said that we have a lot of documents that we are going to collect from the client. So we might find that one document is a Word, the other one is an image, the third one is a PDF. But I will go with most of them will be PDF or a Word document.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And a question to MBB. Should API connectivity be completed prior to the challenge?
Not really. I think this is something the fintech providers can develop. We obviously can work with them for any further clarifications they might have to get to a solution which is universal. It takes into account all the challenges that I mentioned earlier. And then, when it will come to testing, that is the time when these connectivities will be required.
And to add to that, actually, one thing I would recommend, it was Jayashri, yes. The sandbox. The sandbox is there for that. You could start, developing something and testing on the sandbox, and the sandbox has test data. So to Vineet's point, once you have something that is, you want to then test it on synthesized data from MBB, then ABB can provide a synthesized data set. And then step after that will then become, if you win and they like the solution, then you can do the API connectivity to production environment.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you so much, Vineet. All right. I believe last question we will take because we have 3 minutes left. And that last question is for ABC, but I am not seeing the question come up here. Oh, here we go. The question is, what are the criteria used to verify if a submitted document is an original copy, i.e., what are currently the main steps that authorized officials of the bank take to verify a document is an original copy or maybe like, I guess, a fake?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the moment, we are relying, or most of the banks, they are relying on the RMs, to be honest, or the branch when they receive the documents and they look at it. One more point is very critical when you are looking at the documents is the stamp. So the ministry or any governmental body who's stamping the document itself. So there is no a criteria to have that. So I will go with the case by case.
Okay, just to make it harder for everybody else. Thank you, Martez.
Yeah, that's why it's a challenge, because you might have something in this document which is different than in the other documents. So looking at all the documents at the same time, you can say, okay, there's something wrong between this document and that. So that's why I started with the difficult one by having 40 or 50 pages. So maybe in page 5, there is something, in page 20, it's different.
Understood. I guess we just need to go to Muhammad in Ila and just see if we can borrow Fatima, the humanoid AI based, and just give her the job. And khalas, problem solved.
There are solutions. I mean, it is a challenge. I mean, what Matez mentioned is right. I mean, there are challenges now in the traditional way of doing things by verifying documents. It's not straightforward.
Yeah.
But it's the solution, I'm sure, is out there, and this is the kind of forum that we wanted to put that kind of problem in front of the participants and see who comes up with the best solution. I'm sure that there is somebody that will be able to solve this issue.
We'll find it. We'll find it, inshallah. Well, on that note, I actually want to say thank you, everybody. Was there any last comments or thoughts from any of the panelists before we wrap up? I guess we're all good. So, to the esteemed panelists, Martez, Vineet, Abdulaziz, Muhammad, Yasmin, and Ahmed, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you to my colleague, Melissa, for coordinating and arranging everything. And a big thank you to all the participants for the great questions, for your enthusiasm, for the participation and the interaction. If there are any questions that come to mind afterwards, you can feel free to send them through, to Melissa. And remember that the submission deadline is May 20th. So please do your best to get all the submissions in there. We look forward to seeing you during the challenge and your pitch offs, and to celebrate the winners and to move this forward and finally, see some great solutions in the Bahrain ecosystem. So thank you again, everybody, and have yourself a wonderful rest of day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Cheers.